All right, welcome to, gotta do the math. I don't have Chris here, as you can see, so it's hard for me to count on him to have the number. Episode 32 of That Range Life, a show sometimes about golf. As I mentioned, Chris not here, but today we have a good friend of the program, Jon Claffey of Tour Edge Golf. Jon, thank you for taking time out of your busy school night here to join me and talk a little Tour Edge gear.
Yeah, I think we'll actually talk a lot of golf this episode.
Very golfy. And in fact, I'll take that opportunity. This is a special edition, That Range Life. I'll be honest with everybody. Chris is out on a killer golf trip right now. And he had this idea that, I'm going to do it remotely. We're going to get together. I knew there wasn't a chance, but I let him think there would be. And I said, that's fine. Because I had a post recently that was a Tour Edge comparison between the EXS 220 woods and the EXS Pro woods. So I thought, I know the perfect guy to come on and walk through that post with me while Chris is out. And we're just going to make this a special edition of That Range Life Gear Talk and walk our way through the EXS 220 and Pro model comparisons. So
yeah, just to throw in before we get going is you really knocked that out of the park. You're the only guy out there who has literally looked at every metal wood in the line, Pro versus 220, and said, what's the difference? Let's get data. Let's look at spin. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about, the tech differences and the shape differences. But really, you were looking at your swing and what are you seeing between the performance of the two different lines? They're under the same EXS umbrella. 220 is kind of your extreme MOI.
Yep.
And EXS Pro is, your tour preferred, as we say, straight from the tour van specs. So low spin, but some of the same technology. So you were the one guy out there that really said, I need to see the main difference between these two, and you knocked it out of the park. You did a great job.
And see, they're all over it right there. Right there. Every single one of them sitting right there now. That's not true. One of those may be a head cover on a shaft because the actual club is in my gamer bag. Well,
there you go.
I mean, it's no secret. I've been gaming Tour Edge Metal Woods this year and last year. But you set that up pretty well. I don't really feel like I need to explain what we're talking about. One thing I'll say is I don't know if that's entirely true. I did see, though I admittedly didn't click the link, I did see one of the bigger names in the internet golf world had a post, but might have been just driver.
Yeah, it was that. Yeah, no, a couple guys have gone into driver. But yeah, you were the only one to go driver, fairway, hybrid. Let's break it all down all in one sitting.
Take that, TXG. I'm just kidding. TXG. I've been saying it lately on the show. TXG is like one of the golf media outlets that, as a golf nerd, yes, I do. Believe it or not, I pay attention to other people as well, and I like what they do. They're actually, if you haven't watched it, since this is on Chris's YouTube channel, I can do this. Go check out TXG's video on I can't remember. I know they did the driver. They did both drivers. Did they do the fairway woods?
Of ours?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, they did. Our fairway wood made it pretty far in their little bracket thing they do. We took down Ping.
Ooh.
And it's kind of.
Well, I'm not surprised. Why am I saying it like that? Of course you did.
Yeah.
It was the driver one. That was the one when they reviewed. He reviewed. Matt hit both no, he didn't because they don't have a left-handed version of the.
Yeah, it was the 220 driver.
Man, I remember you telling me about it, and I watched that video of Matt from TXG hitting the 220 driver, and God, what I wouldn't do for 130 miles an hour of club speed.
Right.
Unreal.
Would you trade being a right-handed golfer to a left-handed golfer for it?
Absolutely not. Not a chance. It's like playing guitar. There's like the two most awkward things in the world: a left-handed guitar player, except for Jimi Hendrix and Paul McCartney, Kurt Cobain, maybe, and left-handed golfers. It's so hard to look at.
Right.
I'll tell any left-handed golfer that straight to their face. Anyways, let's talk a little Tour Edge first. So you guys have had I feel like everyone, I've said this to you before, talks about it's the Tour Edge resurgence.
Sure.
Like you guys haven't made good stuff for quite a while, but I think it's safe to say in the past, 2 years, 3 years, I mean, things have really, really started to blow up over there in Batavia. Yeah.
Yeah. So sales wise, record sales 5 straight years. This year is a little different with everything we went through being closed down for 70 some days, but still the golf boom is kind of helping to take care of that right now with how many new golfers have come to the game. I think I saw it was 500,000 juniors coming to the game this year and 20% increase in total golfers over last year, which is huge.
Yeah.
So that has, put us kind of back on pace. But before that, it was 5 straight years of record sales. And we're making a profit every year. So these big golf club companies, I think, Callaway just started making a profit, just a few years ago for the first time in a decade or something. So not always the easiest thing to do in our market, but that could be changing now. But yeah, no, we have been on fire. I would say what you're alluding to is more of, hey, you're seeing us a little bit more on, advertising on Golf Channel. You're seeing, us bark a little bit about what we're doing out on the Champions Tour. We signed, Scott McCarron, Tom Lehman, Duffy Woldorf, Tim Petrovic. Got a little staff of guys we're using to, advertise. And but I think the biggest thing has just been where we brought our performance of our clubs. We've really raised the level of things over the last, I'd say it's been 3 years where it was noticeable. The first EXS line was good.
The driver sounded a little weird.
Well, that was some of the feedback we got, is that you guys are getting really close. The performance is there, sound and feel need a little work. And we have put a ton of focus and energy into R&D. So we kind of, fixed the marketing, the first thing. The next thing to do was kind of make sure R&D was in a great place. And we brought in a couple engineers to join our chief designer, David Glad, also our founder and our president. And so we started doing stuff we've never done before. With the 220, we used what was called a sound diffusion bar for the first time. And it's really just kind of like a studio, music studio would use a sound diffusion panel to bounce sound around and create better acoustic properties. That's what we've done inside the driver head. And so we really did raise the game to the point where now we're getting a ton of drivers in play on the PGA Tour Champions. So, I mean, I think 39 drivers in play in the last 5 events. It's the most we've ever seen. It's kind of a phenomenon that's happening. Completely organic. Just we're out there. Our drivers are available for testing. We go test with a guy on TrackMan. 2 days later, it's in the bag. We've had 16 different guys put in driver this year. And,
no, mind you, that's what it's been about this year, and Champions time is 6 weeks?
7 events.
Yeah, okay.
7 events for us, 16 players, 39 drivers. So most of the drivers are staying in play. We're just getting, no money involved or no contracts involved. It's just, do you like it? It goes in play. So we've had 2 runner-up finishes the last 2 weeks. A guy just put it in that's not a non-staffer, tried it out at the range 2 days before the event in Missouri, put it into play, finished second. We had our staffer, Tim Petrovic, who's playing the pro driver, and he also finished second. He was on, a bunch of airtime with playing against Phil Mickelson in the final group for 2 days. And, he had great numbers with the driver. He's actually playing 13 exotics clubs at the moment. So that was kind of fun. He was wearing our hat. And but yeah, it's just really just a focus, and the fact that we've made the Champions Tour our home. It's really a good fit for us. It's not as, crazy competitive with all these 14 club contracts and everything. And we can go out there and have a little bit more even playing field. And, all of a sudden we've got all these drivers in play. We've got iron sets in play. We've got wedges in play. And obviously what we've been known for a long time, fairways, hybrids, utilities, all over the place out there. So over the last 2 events, we had 85 different exotics clubs in play. So we're really making some moves out there.
Are you counting a set of irons as 5 to 8 clubs? Or are you counting that as like one piece of exotics gear in play?
Well, because we kind of grew up, just getting random fairway woods and random hybrids in play, we count them as a club because it's a big deal for us.
Well, especially those guys, right? Think of like Bernard Longer, who he's like, well, I have 2 Old Adams clubs, 1 TaylorMade club, 2 National Custom clubs. Like they might have 2 different irons from one company.
Yeah, totally. Exactly. So, it's a victory for us to have, Petrovic is playing our blade irons, EXS blades. He's playing 2 EXS blade wedges. Scott McCarron's playing 2 EXS blade wedges. So we've never had wedges in play on tour before. This is a whole new category for us. Just kind of like, we've had drivers in play, but we've never had this many. But we're just breaking through. And I guess back to my original point is that we never would have done this without really taking a few leaps and bounds in sound and feel, because we were really there before with performance, distance, low spin. We've always had that nailed. A big thing for us is we make some of the only titanium face fairways and hybrids in the business. So that's kind of how we started chewing our teeth out there and getting a bunch of those in play. But now that we've got irons and wedges and all these drivers in play, it's just a whole new ballgame.
So let's talk about, I feel like we could BS about this topic for days, and well, let's face it, you and I often do. I think that was a flex right there. I'm not sure. I think I just flexed it. Like, I talk to Jon Claffey about this all the time. It's all right. So let's start diving into this. You alluded to already we're taught what we're going to cover, I guess, in recapping my EXS 220 versus Pro post. We'll walk through the gear, and the key point to make, and we'll cover this, is I'm not a robot and golfers aren't robots. So Tour Edge can put this gear on a machine all they want and say this is what it does, but it's trying to get a little real world perspective. There's some givens, I think, that we should discuss up front that all the gear does or doesn't have, but certain things that I don't think we need to spend a ton of time on each section here. But let's start with one you were just speaking about, is the use of titanium. And correct me if I don't say the term correctly, but you guys use a process called combo brazing. Is that it?
Yep. Combo brazing. Been doing that.
It's a weld, or is it a seamless weld or weldless process that joins the titanium to stainless steel?
Yep, that's correct. Saves a bunch of weight. We've been doing that since we first launched Exotics in 2005. The first CB1, as everybody refers to it, the original fairway wood that was 20 yards further than the competition, that got in play with Luke Donald and Snedeker and J.D. Holmes and Kuchar and all those guys, and a club that's been in play in Masters and Ryder Cups. The CB1, the CB2, the CB actually stand for combo brazing. So we've been doing that all the way back to those early years of Exotics, and we've been doing it ever since. And what it does is it just saves a ton of weight. So we have more weight to actually put the center of gravity precisely where we want it. In the clubs that you loved a lot, the CBX and the CBX 119, it was a big factor in being able to push the CG actually forward. And that's why we called those the spin killers, and why we have, we really have never seen anything like that in fairway woods and hybrids that reduce spin as much as that. It's because, even if you used a lighter titanium face and you didn't use the combo brazing process that we use, you're not going to save as much weight. You're not going to have as much discretionary weight to play with.
Right. So before we really get into this, what's significant about using titanium versus whatever anybody else does?
For the most part, it's what I just talked about, and just controlling, masterfully where you're going to place the CG, and that's really a lot these days. But at the same time, it increases CT across the face. It's got a more powerful feel. So we're like right now, the Tie Utility, we have the only titanium face utility iron on the market, and really it's producing the fastest ball speeds of any utility iron out there because we're the only ones that have titanium in it.
I will tell you, I hit that today, and sneak peek. You told me, not as much of a sneak peek now. You told me that club was going to be pretty, I'd be impressed by it. I'm like, yeah, whatever. Utility iron. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. Sneak peek to that review. Okay. So you already talked about the sound diffusion bar. I like to think that's my doing that exists. So everybody's welcome for that contribution to Tour Edge.
Yeah, it's the same, to just kind of dive into the pro and the 220 driver. There are, in the 220 driver, there's one sound diffusion bar. In the pro, we had to get multiple going on in there and actually do some acoustic ribbing because the flight track, it's the first time we've ever had a sliding weight on a driver.
Mm-hmm.
And it's obviously a little bit smaller in CC than the 220. So the 220 driver is your standard 460 cc. We kept hearing out on the tour, you guys have to make a smaller driver. Somebody has to make us a smaller driver. That the pros were craving it. So we went down to 440 cc, and the flight track was very unique for us. We love it. It works like a charm as far as moving weight around really easily and affecting ball flight. But it was really, really hard to nail the sound and feel with that big sliding crevice in the back of the club head. So we actually had to really go to town on figuring out where those bars go inside the inside of the head, and also do some ribbing to make it perfect, and which we did accomplish.
I just pictured Glad in his top secret golf nerd room, just slamming his head against the wall, like just taking pieces of metal and super gluing them in. Like, I can't figure it out.
I don't know what he does in there. It's top secret, so we're not even allowed in there. So maybe that's why. But no, it's. I
don't even know what he's doing back there. All right, one other common piece of technology that goes across the platform before we dive in here is the diamond face technology.
Just on driver, it's on everything in 220.
Yeah,
but it's only in the pro driver.
Right. Well, I was going to let you explain that, but now that you have explained that, also explain what it is and what it does.
Diamond Face has been awesome for us. It's, basically the way everything was going for years was variable face thickness, different thin and thick portions of the face that created, bigger contact points on the face, more out to the heel and toe. Well, we kind of went as far as we could with using what was your typical variable face thickness. Mm-hmm. And we found this amazing technology that are little diamond patterns that go behind the face. And it not only makes the sweet spot bigger out to the heel and to the toe, so miss hits are, feel like almost like center hits, but it added a lot of pop, as far as face flex. It really, because we were able to make, instead of just having two different thicknesses, we were able to go, there are 39 different diamonds behind the driver, and we were able to go 5 different thicknesses with these little diamonds. So it really created what was more like mini trampolines behind the face. So it really helped with face flex without increasing CT, which is characteristic time, which is how we now judge what was once known as COR, coefficient of restitution, which is face flex. So everybody always wants to still talk about COR, but how we measure it these days is called CT. And I think
you already alluded to it. Think of it like the face is a trampoline. When the ball hits it, it springs a little, no matter what you do pretty much. And so this gives you the ability to, well, one of the issues, you can only make a face so thin before it starts caving in or becomes illegal. Well, now you guys get a robust enough face that still has that effect because of this, right?
Depending on where you hit it, especially. So if you could catch the right exact spot, even high toe shot, and it's gonna act like you hit the sweet spot. So it's very forgiving. You add that in with the 220 with the fact that it's got a 5,400 MOI, grams per cubic centimeter squared, which is extremely high. Anything above 5,000 for a driver is like hitting 400, like Teddy Williams, right? So to get it to 5,400 is like taking that to the next level. So it's one of the higher MOIs. It's up there with, your pings that are out there. Nobody, I think if you just go to buy a standard driver out there, even your top-notch stuff costing over $600, you're going to be around a 4,500, 4,800 MOI. So the 220 head at 5,400 is one of the most stable heads on the market. And that's why we're getting a lot of those in Play on Champions Tour, even versus the Pro Driver, because the Pro Driver is right at about 5,000. So it's not as an extreme MOI because a player likes a little workability, whereas the 220 is just straight all day long because of how high that MOI is. So that's another big difference between the two.
Okay. All right, so let's drive into the driver. Drive into the drivers. Hey, that works. Dive in to the drivers. In terms of the EXS 220 versus the EXS Pro driver, high level, tell me what Tour Edge says the difference between these two are, and what my different take should be for both of them on paper.
Biggest thing is other than the looks, which the Pro model is more compact, deeper face, a little bit more traditional pear shape. The biggest thing that we made two drivers for, pretty much under the same umbrella, the EXS umbrella, was for spin. And so we're seeing about an average of 500 to 600 RPMs lower spin with the EXS Pro model. And that's, obviously with the same shaft. But we learned a lot with our robot, our in-house swing robot named Ted for Tour Edge development. We learned a lot about shafts recently, and we put that knowledge into play with the Pro to figure out, all right, we're making this driver for a reason. Number one reason, if we had to name it, would be to lower spin, and we were able to do so by about 500 RPMs on average.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the looks a little more in depth. You said earlier the 220 is 460 cc's. The Pro is 440. The 220 definitely has a little bit more of that, what I call that like smushed pancake look. It's not too bad though, because sometimes they can look really flat, really shallow. I'd say this is a nice, fair medium for that profile.
To get that MOI, we had to really bring it back as far as we could. So it's good enough that it's still, I think, out of the 39 drivers we've had in play, the vast majority, over 70% of them, are still 220. So it's not like a tour player puts it down and goes, "Hey guys, that just looks out of whack." It doesn't. It sets up nicely, but once you hit it, you go, "I get it. I see why it's shaped like that." That thing is, like I said, it's just built to be straight. Now, anybody who holds any kind of standard that says, "I am the discerning golfer, I am your Titleist guy all the way through,"
that's me.
Yeah, right. So we made the Pro EXS Pro driver for you.
Right, exactly. So I will say that it does take a little bit of maybe adjustment's not the right word, but there's a very functional reason for the shape of that 220 driver. And I think, I don't know, is it bad for you? Can I name another like old brand's driver for comparison? Is that a problem?
Not for me.
All right. So I think of like one of the best, that like 460 cc medium kind of flat pancake vibe. One of the best looking ones ever to me was the Titleist 915 D2. They did a great job with it. So I almost feel like that's a benchmark for this kind of profile, but the EXS 220 doesn't have that kind of profile, but there's a reason for it, right? And you said it earlier, but I want to elaborate on it. The whole point was to create the MOI, and I'm going to simplify MOI for people who don't know what that necessarily means. Simplify, though, there's a big scientific explanation, but let's just say it makes the driver more forgiving and easier to hit in the air straight. So,
yeah, moment of inertia is MOI. It's the resistance to twisting at impact. Every golf club, including a putter, is going to twist. Physics dictates it's going to twist during impact. So the higher the MOI, the less twisting, the more stable, the straighter you're going to be.
Right. So if Tour Edge went in the effort to make this really forgiving, dare I say it, and I will say it from my own experience, easy to hit driver, they needed to, John said earlier, they needed it to pull it back. And by pull it back, he means from the middle of the, say like the center of the face to the back of the crown, they needed to make it long. Now, if it looked like a pear, that point would be more forward in the head, or, you know, they went for a different shape, it might be more back, but they put it right in the middle because this is also going to impact the center of gravity, right?
Yep.
So you try to stretch it out as much as you can to give yourself that back low center of gravity to help launch the ball higher with a little more spin, but that's keeping it in the air. It's essentially a more forgiving driver.
It is. David Glad really wanted to kind of break the sound barrier, if you will, on MOI.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I believe if it's not tied for the highest MOI of any driver ever made, then it's you know, it's number 2, but it's
up
right there.
Right. So it does have a little bit of like, man, it's a long head, but it serves a functional purpose. And from my own experience, it's far from unpalatable to look at. It still looks good, especially knowing there's a reason for it. It looks good behind the ball, frames it nicely still.
It does exactly what it was intended to do, for sure.
Yeah, well, we'll get to the performance, all right? We'll talk about that. But in terms of the look, now, like John said, the Pro is more traditional. When I first got my EXS Pro, I said to people, I'm like, I haven't seen this traditional of a shape and footprint behind a ball in a long time. And it's just that perfect pear-shaped classic driver. And I think I said it in the review for it, but it might be the best looking driver footprint in the current market, in my opinion. But
I've heard that a lot. I've heard that about the sound and feel of the Pro. I mean, guys, really good players are gushing over this driver, and not just the tour guys, but just across the board. I mean, it's the Pro, you know, for that particular guy was nailed.
Yeah,
I feel like we nailed them both, you know. But you know, the 220 is more function over form, and the Pro is a little bit of both.
Right. So last piece on the looks, they both have the sick carbon crown, and that look I feel like is hard for companies to nail, because you kind of get in like, okay, you're doing the whole carbon fiber thing. It's very tastefully done on the Tour Edge stuff. My 2 cents.
Yeah, it's the most carbon we've ever used, and it's high grade stuff for sure.
Also, a functional purpose by using carbon instead of stainless steel or whatever metal. It's lighter on top, so you have more. I believe the term everybody uses is discretionary weight placement, so you guys can dial in the center of gravity where you want it, right?
Exactly, 100%.
So again, looks cool, but actually does something. Imagine that. In terms of performance, both, I mean, like you said already, both sounded and felt fantastic. Easily the best Tour Edge drivers I've felt or heard in recent models. But we talked about the center of gravity locations. Well, I guess we did to some extent. It's low and back in the 220, and it's more low and forward in the Pro, right?
That's correct.
And then you already talked about, you have the flight track in the back of the EXS Pro. What does that give us the ability to do? I mean, I'm imagining most people watching this golf nerd video know, but I'll let you explain.
Yeah, no, it's a 6 gram weight comes standard. You can change that out for heavier weights, but you can just move it from, you know, to a draw or a fade setting with the simple click of a driver wrench and put it exactly where you want. So you can kind of self-fit yourself on the range. And if you're, you know, if you're starting to come in a little steep and you need to adjust some stuff, you know, before the round, then you can do so. It's super easy. It's a lot easier than, you know, flipping weights around, which a lot of people, it's kind of proven you flip once and then that's it usually. A lot of people just don't play around with the weights, but with this one, you can be on the range and kind of create that perfect ball flight just for your swing, because you can put it anywhere in between the draw and the fade setting.
Now, while the 220 doesn't have the sliding weight, you can still change the weights in that one, right?
Yeah. You know, there's a back weight for MOI that you can change. And on the Pro fairway woods and hybrids that we'll get to, they also have what we call a flight tuning system, which is removable weights that you can adjust and flip back and forth. The Pro driver is the only one out of all of them that has this flight track technology. But obviously, I think you'll see some more of that from us in the future.
Oh, man, guys, break! You heard it here first. So we'll just I'll cover my performance on a little bit and my comparisons. And both were long, plenty long. Distance wasn't an issue. And in this day and age, everyone's real focused on launch and spin, which as they should be. The ultimate goal with a driver is you want ideally you're optimizing somewhere, and it feels like most people in 11 to 13 point something degree launches and spins. If you can keep them right in that 2,500 range, and I'm not macho enough to say like, oh, I need a 1,700 spin, but the 220 in theory should spin and launch a little more. But I found that it did spin a little more and it did launch a little higher than the Pro, but it still had it was still a comfortable medium, both in spin and launch. There's enough spin to control the ball and keep it in the air and hold it to get that carry, but by no means was it spinning too much. Was it launching? It's not like I was hitting a driver 15 degrees in the air.
Yeah.
So even for the one that's supposed to be, quote, higher spinning and more forgiving and higher launching, it's still a pretty, obviously you have to have a reasonable shaft for your swing in it to do this. But I mean, it was a comfortable medium and more than playable, right?
I think what you're seeing there is diamond face at work. Diamond face above, creating a bigger sweet spot on the face, and also above creating a higher face flex CT. It also does a great job at reducing spin. Mm-hmm. So it's just kind of do it all for us, because we would see these awesome launch angles like 13 and a half in a driver, and it's what everybody wants. But what you don't want with that is added spin. So the numbers I'm seeing with both these drivers is pretty amazing. The launch that you get compared to the spin that you get is kind of off the charts as far as, wow, I didn't even know those combinations were possible. But I do believe that is diamond face technology at work.
As far as the Pro, it is absolutely a low launching, low spinning driver. In fact, part of our discussions today, I was hitting the Pro, and I've been having driver woes lately, and I'm like, you need to have the swing to get that ball launched and carrying. And thankfully, when I was hitting the ball all right when I did my testing, but way back when, but it is, if you have the swing for that thing, man, it is a low launch, low spin bomber. You can just hit ropes with that thing.
Yeah, it is. Like I said, it's opened up a lot of eyeballs. It's turned a lot of heads since we launched it in June. The 220 driver was already doing its fair share of that, but most of that is just guys going, wow, I never hit a driver this forgiving. The Pro is kind of the best of all worlds. We threw a ton of tech at it, and it's only a $400 driver. There's only 1,000 of them being released, and we're almost running out.
Yeah. So if you have one, you might need to worry about what the Tour Edge Museum have in your backup 4 years down the road. Good point to add. Lifetime warranty on all Tour Edge clubs, right?
Yeah, except for limited. No, they we back them up. Once they're gone, they're gone. There's 1,000 being made available to the public.
Right.
That's the number. So it's not like we're using the ones we use for tour don't come off that number. If at they moved a lot faster than we thought they would. So if we have to bring some in and say, hey, guys, there's one more batch coming in, we may do so, but we haven't even made that call yet.
I don't think the world would be mad at that. They'd understand.
Yeah. It's not like they're not numbered or anything.
Right. I'm going to start doing that. I'm just going to, anybody who has one, I'll sneak up and like silver Sharpie a number on it. 722 of 1,000.
I like it.
Just real quick, I felt like the stock shots 220 was just what you want it to be. Medium launch, straight. Can you work it? Yes. And you can work the ball with any golf club. It's all your swing path, all that. But you're looking for something that's just easy and straight. That driver has you. The Pro stock shot is, like I said, a low bullet, very workable. It's a shot maker's club, but it's not the stock easy launch, easy carry, get the ball in the air. Different club for different people. So
yep.
If you're going to go the pro route, just make sure you have the game for it. That's all I'm saying.
You know, how forgiving that 220 driver is my old man has been using it as his punch out club, hitting driver off the deck to create. And he's using it like two or three times around, and he's getting it up in the air. And I'm like, how are you, of all people, you know, a guy who's in his mid 70s hitting driver off the deck? And it's because it's got the slipstream sole on the bottom, which helps with turf interaction. And it's just that forgiving of a driver that he's able to use it as he's been working on his punch out game, obviously.
I put an idea in my head. I might throw it in the bag just to prove a point, just to do it. All right, so let's move on to the fairway woods, 220 versus pro. I will start by saying, before you say anything, I think you'll be hard pressed to find a better 1-2 punch or fairway wood family out there right now. And again, you know, this is where everyone's like, oh, you know, you love everything. It's like, I don't know what to tell you. I could buy any club. I review a bunch of clubs. I have had either the 220 fairway wood or the EXS Pro fairway wood in my bag exclusively this year, and that's coming off of other Tour Edge woods, which I think the EXS fairway wood was good. The CBX 119 fairway wood was good. Kicked all of that out of my bag. It's that good. That's my 2 cents.
I think it was just, you know, that perfect storm for us where we nailed sound and feel. The 220 is a larger footprint fairway wood. It is a beast. It is going to, first of all, that's where we butter our bread, and everybody probably would say, what's the one thing you know Tour Edge for? It's fairway woods, fairway metals. And that's where we kind of made our hay for many, many years. We've obviously grown into more categories in the fairway wood, but we still take a lot of pride in saying, yeah, we make some of the best fairway woods out there. And these two are definitely our best 1-2 punch in a long, long time, if maybe not ever. There's a lot of differences between the 220 and the pro. The main one being the footprint is larger on the 220. Again, the MOI is really high. You don't want, now once you start getting into fairway woods and hybrids, you know, you don't want the maximum MOI. You want to nail it. You want to make it the correct MOI for fairway woods and hybrids, because you don't, I mean, stability on a driver is one thing. It becomes a little bit, you don't want it to be too rigid in a fairway wood and a hybrid. So we still have some of the highest MOI numbers, but you got to really dial it in to make it the best possible.
What would you say?
The pro fairway wood is, I think, just a piece of artwork to me. It's gorgeous. It's a compact head with a deep face. It's got these movable flight track weights that are to the extreme heel and toe. And it's just, you know, they both have the slipstream sole, which now the slipstream sole actually starts coming into play with the fairway woods, because you're talking about turf interaction. And it absolutely works when it comes to gliding the club head through turf. But I think when you look at the 220 at address versus the pro at address, you really probably see the biggest difference, even more so in the drivers of, this is a player's club. This is a club for somebody to just go smash with the 220. So I think that, you tell me, do you think that the line is a little bit more so than the driver? Because the footprints are just so much different, I think, with the 220 versus the pro fairway.
So I think you're not wrong, but I want to go back to the looks department. And as I answer that question, yes, it is a larger footprint than the EXS Pro, but in my notes, yeah, it's a little longer, but it is a little bigger, but it's still a pretty traditional shallowed face looking fairway wood. And it's not, most companies have a bigger fairway wood and a smaller fairway wood, right? So this is by no means in that mini driver fairway wood category. It is a nice, call it medium sized, shallow face fairway wood. And if I'm not mistaken, right as the coronavirus pandemic hit, Tom Lehman just got one handed to him, sat it down and went, "This is the best looking fairway wood I've ever seen." And it went straight in his bag. No,
That is correct.
is Tom Lehman? I don't know. Is Tom Lehman any good?
He's been known to be good. Yes.
So, I mean, it's a good looking. So, yes, agreed. It is the one for the guys like, I just want to go bash a fairway wood long and straight, and we'll talk about that. But it's still, I mean, players will like that fairway wood too on appearances alone. Now, yes, to that point where, hey, I am a, compact peanut fairway wood kind of guy. I want
deep face, yeah,
I want that look behind the ball. It's your EXS Pro. It's fantastic, traditional looking. I mean, both of them just a like metal flake black finish, no alignment aids, just super slick looking at a dress. But that Pro is small.
Yeah,
it looks fantastic. It certainly does. Now, to your point, you start getting into MOI and function. Yeah, it really comes down to, everyone sort of thinks fairway woods are supposed to be easier to hit. You should hit a 3-wood instead of a driver. That's a myth. I've done studies with previous websites that fairway woods aren't that easy to hit. They're just not. So, what you like in a fairway wood comes down to how comfortable you are with it. And I think with both of these, it's like, if you're a fairway wood player, it's pretty tough to argue with that EXS Pro, because you can do a lot of shot shaping with it. It is long. It's a control guy. Whereas that 220, there's times I think I don't even need a driver in my bag with it. I can get ridiculous carry with this thing. I'm hitting it out of lies I feel like I shouldn't be able to hit a fairway wood out of, and it's just going. I haven't felt that confident with a fairway wood in a really long time with the EXS 220. It is, yeah. And you've been talking about diamond face. For all I know, the diamond face is impacting me more than the drivers, but I will tell you, I feel like that diamond face technology is the most noticeable and makes the biggest difference in that EXS 220 fairway wood.
Yeah.
I mean, that ball just screams off that face and sounds fantastic. It just sounds so good. In
your comparison article, what were you seeing on spin, RPM, 220 fairway versus pro fairway? Was it as similar to the driver?
Like, wow, these numbers look a lot like my driver. Do you mean like in terms of?
No, was it about the same as far as RPM, like difference? Like, was it 500 RPM difference?
Yeah, it was in that same thing, right? Where I had a nice medium launch with moderate spin and more carry with the 220. And with the Pro, it definitely launched lower and had pretty low spin. Want to say, without, of course, I don't have the graphics available due to having our video up. Crack show here, always prepared.
I'm just gonna pull up drivingrangeheroes.com right now.
Hit website, drivingrangeheroes.com. But I remember it was somewhere around 2,500 RPMs for the Pro. And I mean, I know a lot of hot shots with their big fast swings that are hitting fairway woods still in that like 2,000, 2,100 range. And I'm just not that player. So, I mean, they were closer in their spin maybe than the drivers were, but both of them were sub 3,000. And I want to say as you're checking here, my launch was only like, a small degree difference.
Yeah. So on the driver, the 220 was a 13.8 degree launch, while the Pro was 10.8. That's a big difference. That's 3 degrees difference. The spin on 220 was 2,600. And so the spin on the Pro is 2,300. So there you have the 300 RPMs. You were 309 total distance with 220 and 315 with the Pro, and that had the same carry. So you were getting a lot more rollout with the Pro with that low spin, which is the whole point of that driver. To the fairway wood, you were,
it's like a 200 Yeah.
14-degree launch angle with the 220. We had 2,800 spin, and your total distance was 284. Your launch angle with the Pro was 12.9, so it was a 1 degree difference. Your spin was 2,600, so again, it was 200 RPM, so 100 short of what you did with the driver. And your total distance was 285, almost the same exact total distance. And your carry distance was 4 yards longer with the 220. So again, you were getting lower spin, more rollout with a lower launch angle with the Pro, just like we advertised.
Right. And one thing I'll say, I think I said in the comparison post, there's a lot of posts. It's easy to not remember what you said where. The difference I felt like with the 220 was, yeah, this is where I averaged, but the 220 has a pretty easy step on it mode because it is forgiving. It is easy to get in the air. All right, my club speed was 111.1 miles an hour. All right, I want to put a 2-3 extra miles per hour on that thing. I start getting more yards. I mean, I was having total yardages in the 290s. I was having carry distance well over 270. I mean, that's driver distance for mortals like us. So,
I mean, I think we found and proven, especially by our trials out of the PGA Tour Champions, that there's a place for both of these. But that still 220 is going to be like 80% and Pro is going to be 20%. It's kind of like that dividing line where, we're talking about multiple PGA Tour winners, legends of our game who still are swinging, 105 miles an hour with driver, and they fall in love with the Pro, say Fairway would, and they may come back in 2 weeks and go, I think I want 220 again because I'm a little stiff today. I just want everything in the bag, So it's one of those things where we have seen some guys go back and forth depending on how they're feeling. It just has proven to us that there's a place for both of these clubs, but the majority of them are still going 220 because it's given you pretty much everything you need, but it's just that confidence factor you were just talking about.
So, and I mean, you've heard me say it, and you know people who have converted over to the 220 based off of me just being like, guys, it's just that good. And to your point of flipping back and forth, I've been doing, like I said, I've been doing that all year. I will say the thing that's nice with the Pro, if you have your game, I mean, it can just hit that low piercing bullet to run down a fairway, obviously run down a fairway wood. And, you need to hit like a low cut. You need to hit a power draw. You can shape your shots with it super easy. I mean, it is a shot maker's fairway wood through and through.
Yeah, I couldn't set it better myself. Absolutely. It's any windy day that's the one you want. We should just go, if we were to go set up at the British Open and try to get some clubs in play, we would just bring a bag full of Pros because we would get those in play over there all day.
And let's be clear, you go, I need to hit that low floating fade. Well, if you're playing it because you can hit a variety of shots, most likely, you can still hit that high, smooth fade to come in soft on a green. You can still do it. It's not like, that shot doesn't exist in this club.
Yeah, we would get a lot of, just utility irons too in play in that scenario too. If you really are looking for stingers and hot non-ballooning tee shots, then look at the tie utility for sure.
I'm finding myself second time wanting to talk about that one more. That thing is something.
Well, plus you went with the all black pearl, so that was the winner of the sexiest golf club contest at the PGA show.
Yeah, that's exactly the kind of golf clubs I put in my bag. You guys know I'm a hot shot. All right, let's move on to the hybrids. This is to me where things got a little interesting. Well, actually, I didn't think it was that interesting. It wasn't until you guys pointed it out to me. Tell me about the two hybrids and what they're supposed to do.
Yeah, you almost have like a super hybrid here with, as far as size with the 220, almost like a little, what we would call a fibrid. It's in between a fairway wood and a hybrid.
Yep.
Extremely powerful, extremely easy to launch. There's 5 lofts, 17, 19, 22, 25, 28. So that's a lot more of a, traditional way of looking at a hybrid, 2-degree increments, all the way up to your 5 hybrid at a 28-degree. That is going to be like, you could hand that to your guy down in the villages, and he's going to have a field day.
Right.
So, you go down to the 17-degree, and you could use this puppy off the tee all day long. So it's very versatile, very kind of for everybody to improve your game, but with the best of the best materials and design aspects and tech. Whereas with the Pro, you have a more iron-like club where an iron swing is going to work a little better. We have 6 lofts, which is probably the most lofts of any hybrid in the market. 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 22. We skipped 21. So the reason we do that is because this is, this is our tour club. So we don't like having an adjustable hosel.
I was just going to say, let's point out, if I'm not mistaken here, both hybrids are bonded hosels, right? They don't have sleeves.
Fairways. Yeah, we just don't believe in adjustability is needed for fairways and hybrids because of how much weight it adds. It's about 15 grams that you have to deal with, and it takes away from everything we're trying to accomplish with the combo brazing and all the meticulous work we do to get a precise CG location.
Right.
So that we choose to not do adjustability because of that extra weight that it adds. So that's why we make every loft. We have this special true loft system where we're triple checking lofts to make sure that we have a super tight tolerance on the lofts. But again, that's 6 different lofts to choose from, 16 through 22. And
can we talk about that real quickly, or just point out real quickly? That's so wild. And what you said starting at 16 or 17, 16?
16.
16, 17, 18, 19, 20?
Yep, then 22. We skipped 21. And so
nobody else I know of is making single increments in hybrids. Like
no one else does it. It's because of how how true we can get to loft when we're making them. And it's because the hybrid is the one club where when you go out and talk to professionals and say, what are you looking for? They don't know what they're looking for, except for they know that they need the 225. They know that they needed 220 to 225 on the dot. And
as I say, it allows for that much of a precision dial into really a small handful of distances in someone's bag. It's not like you are looking to cover at the player this club's geared for. You're not looking to cover 50 yards of distance ranges. It's really, like you said, you're looking to cover probably somewhere from 215 to 230, 235.
Yep.
I'm waiting for someone to like roast me on that. Give or take, you get the point.
Yeah, you just for the pros especially, what they look for in a hybrid is they want it to never balloon into the wind. They want it to be precise in the distances, and they want it to stop on the green. So when you have all these different lofts and all the different shaft combinations, we can dial in somebody into a hybrid better than anybody else in this business because of how we do this. Mm-hmm. And we do. We get these guys dialed in. The biggest thing beyond all that is that pros hate it when their hybrids go left. They tend to go left. If they miss it, they tend to go left. We have designed the EXS Pro Hybrid to be an anti-left hybrid and have proven that it is an anti-left hybrid. So that has been extremely popular so far.
So speaking of the looks a little further, like you said, mini fairway wood versus mini hybrid, really. It's a smaller hybrid. Both of them have nice pear shapes to them. It's a common theme as we've been discussing today. So I think if you're looking for that pear-shaped mini fairway wood, again, the 220 looks good. And it really does look like a compressed version of the 220 fairway wood, except it's a deeper face, if I'm not mistaken, but smaller compact that should be. The hybrid, the Pro, I'm sorry, not the hybrid, they're both hybrids. The Pro is pretty thin. It definitely bulges toward the front of the face and has a steep decline back to the rear of the club. And if I'm not mistaken, that is not only for looks, but a functional purpose in you wanted the center of gravity, well, you specifically, you designed it. You wanted the center of gravity low and forward, or I should say more forward in this club. And by making it that steep, that means the bulk of the weight isn't in the tail of the club, but toward the front, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. And it still has a sound diffusion bar, has all that. Now,
and here's where I'm looking at your comparison chart again.
I was going to say, tell me what the performance is supposed to look like in terms of, well, you already did, but high level, 220 is supposed to be high launch, higher spin. Well,
yes,
compared to the Pro. And the Pro is lower launch, lower spin.
Yep. But we had a little bit of an anomaly with you on that. You had a 16 degree launch angle with 220, but you had 4,100 RPM spin. And with the Pro, you had 14 degree launch angle, which is what we would expect, 2 degrees difference. But your spin was actually higher at 4,600. So I'm not sure what happened there. But what absolutely did happen there is that you were murdering the 220 hybrid as far as distance. You ended up being 5 yards longer than the Pro, which I don't think either of us expected. We definitely didn't expect you to have higher spin.
I mean, I'm not trying to brag, but this anomaly was so unexpected for you. It even made it to one of the head guys that is not named David Glad of the R&D department, correct?
Yeah, well, we had to figure out what was going on, and I don't think we ever did. I think what was going on is you were just absolutely murdering the 220 hybrid.
I think your guy
256 yard total distance. What were you hitting there?
So I went back out, and after I got your notes back from your R&D guy, and I think, the assessment was, I sent you the graphic that you will see in this video with Chris McEwen's great post-production work. You don't see angle of attack. And I'll be honest, I wasn't really paying attention to it. But his theory was, one's like a mini fairway wood. I'm probably taking a mini fairway wood swing with it.
That's right.
The other one was smaller profile, more of an iron, taller face. I'm probably taking more of an iron swing with it. Sure enough, what do you know? That's exactly what I was doing. And the problem is that's in my head now. So every time I go out there, I'm like, don't swing it like an iron, or no, you swing it like an iron. And then, I hit it fat and do something stupid because I'm a bad golfer. But it is exactly right. And this goes to the point of, I'm not a robot. I can't make the same swing every single time. I mean, if it was a little better, maybe I could, but I just can't. I have the human element. And maybe this is a good chance to talk about TED a little bit, but when you guys are testing this to make the bold claims on your product pages of what these are supposed to do, you're dialing TED in to be consistent and make a very specific type of swing, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we could, if we wanted to, we could take your swing and program it into TED.
Oh, I forgot about
that.
But
we
should
do
that.
We don't want to do that.
I say we'll give TED will become infected and never work again. But yeah, so I did find that I was hitting it steeper. I was coming into the ball steeper with the EXS Pro, but I felt like I could control it better, and I could hit different shots with it, and I could hit it higher in the air if I had to. I could make it come down softer. I can hit it right. I can hit it loud. I can do everything I need to do with it. Whereas I can hit the living daylights out of that. Again, common theme here, right? I can hit the living daylights out of that 220 hybrid, but it goes long.
Well, I think if you ever carry two hybrids, you would want to carry the lower lofted 220 and the higher lofted Pro. So you would use more of the 220 more of off the tee, and you would use the Pro as approaching greens.
Yeah, I would take the 220 in terms of, well, didn't want to carry a 5-wood.
256 off the tee, nice and straight with a hybrid is nothing to sneeze at.
No, and that's where I have historically hit a 5-wood. and I'm doing it with a 3 hybrid. Not a big deal.
Right.
Which
five woods are awesome, by the way. I think it's time for the 5 wood to make a comeback.
Mine's going back in the bag. I'm maybe this video is a great time to announce this switch. I made a pretty big shift this year. I took a fairway wood out of the bag and I put an extra wedge in. So that's why I went 4 wood with the EXS Pro. But I'm like, you know what? I've been struggling lately. I'm just going back to basics. The driver's been killing me. At least if I'm hitting the driver bad, I know I can get some killer distance with a 220 fairway wood. It's going back in the bag. Well, now I have a distance gap. Fine. Putting a 5 wood back in the bag, and that is a CBX 119, just so we all know. And then the 52-degree wedge is out. We'll worry about that problem. I need to keep my ball in bounds before I'm worrying about using a wedge anywhere. And I mean, I'm at a point where you could put me at any point on the property of a golf course. Damn it, I'll find an out of bounds somewhere. I'll hit it 7 holes over and backwards if I have to at this point.
Yeah.
So I'm making that switch. And yeah, but it's interesting because I would tell you out of all of the 2020 EXS family, I'm just staring at a picture of the hybrid right now, the 220 hybrid. It is probably the least it's made the least amount of an impression on me. And I mean that because the rest of it's so good, but it's also very good. It's just like, it's a monster. Fitting it in the bag just didn't work. It'd have to be like going back to you going, hey, Claff, I need a full Tour Edge fitting here because I have no idea.
Yeah.
I can't hitting this thing. If you told me a 3 hybrid would go 256.4 yards, I'd tell you you're crazy. Well, average.
I was pretty shocked with Tim Petrovic. If you asked him for the last 2 years, what's your number 1 money club, he would have told you it's my number 2 and number 3 CBX Ironwoods. He was using them off the tee, hitting 275, just murdering these clubs, and was just perfect with them. He even putted with them. But all of a sudden this year, it's 2 EXS 220 hybrids. It's not the Pro. He's playing Pro driver. He's playing CBX CBX original fairway wood right now. But it's 2 220 hybrids in the bag. And he kicked out the money club that he said would never get kicked out. And I'm going, wow, that just means 220 hybrid is really good.
Well, and we don't have to name any names. I feel like I haven't seen a lot of EXS Pro hybrid reviews yet, but they've been coming in for the 220. And I mean,
there's some pro stuff out there on the forums that you can check out, but it's real deal stuff. It's real golfers who are testing these out.
But the 220 hybrid, in terms of like editorial reviews, like we do, or whatever you want to call them, they've been pretty glowing about the 220 hybrid. I mean, there's a lot of people that are going, Jesus, this thing's a monster. And I think, let's be honest, us bloggers, if you will, even have our biases. And I feel like that club has turned quite a few heads.
Yeah, I think it's up there, like from everything I've seen, talking to fitters and everything. Ball speed, it's a top 3 ball speed producing hybrid. Our fairways are probably tops when it comes to ball speed. I know our tie utility is up there, like probably number 1 when it comes to ball speed that we've seen just from talking to our network of fitters and everything. So ball speed has become a really big thing that we're able to pull off right now.
All right. Hybrid's great. As we said, the fairway woods are great. The drivers are great. Common theme here with you guys, and I've been screaming it for at least a year on making these shows with Chris. I know Chris has switched. I have a couple buddies that you know of that have switched as well. I'm not making it up. Come look at my golf bag at any given time. These things are the real deal. Do you want to remind?
You even earned that hat you're wearing, Bill.
Yeah. How do you like this? These are new, right?
Brand new, yeah.
Yeah. So pick those up on shop.touredge.com. Do you want to remind everybody one more time, because I feel like the number's insane, what Tour Edge's in-play stats are this year?
For
right now.
On the Champions Tour?
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. We have had, so I think 35 different guys have chosen to use our clubs. Only 4 of those guys are on staff. We've had, just this last week, we had 85 clubs in play. Obviously, that was counting 2 blade iron sets that Tim was playing. But 39 drivers, by far the most we've ever had. 16 different guys choosing to play our driver. We all, a lot of people always ask whenever I'm talking about Champions Tour, well, why don't you get clubs in play on the big tour? Well, we are in play on the big tour. It's just, we've been out there forever. It was really hard and to get into the bags because of all the contracts, but we still have at least, 10, 15 guys end up putting us in play just through our contacts out there. We've put our flag into the Champions Tour and made that our home, and we love it out there. But we're in play on Korn Ferry. We're in play on PGA Tour. It's we're not out there as much, so we're at every Champions Tour event. We're one of the few manufacturers that sets up at every event, and we're really making our way out there. So it's been an awesome year. Only 7 events, but we're getting close to getting a win with driver. We've had 2 runner-up finishes in a row, and more drivers than we've ever seen play.
Well, let's face it, in terms of the big tour and whatnot, there have been more stories than people realize. These guys are golf dorks too. They look at the forums, they look at all the golf websites, they look at Twitter. They're not missing, I would say, the surge that Tour Edge has had in these last few years. So if you think these guys aren't seeing that and going, you know what, I need to pay attention to it, you're out of your mind.
Yeah, no, we hear from them. We hear from them a lot that they're seeing it, and that we're just, we're not out there as much to kind of put it in their face. And it's okay. They know how to get in contact with us.
And by all accounts, they're doing it. They're getting in contact. Well, I'll make sure to really continue to put out that I have the fairway woods in my bag, and I'm sure you'll start hearing from a lot of top 50 players because they really watch what I put in my bag. All right, man. I think that about wraps it up. I don't really know what else I can say. I'm not a robot, as I said, but these numbers are pretty thorough, and I worked really hard on figuring out the difference between these two for me. So I think people, if they're wondering, should check it out. It's a pretty good human comparison between
for the
pro line.
You put a lot of work into it, which you can tell, but it's also just not drawn out. It's very concise. And I would say, you got to go to drivingrangeheroes.com and check out that comparison review. Check out all those numbers we were just talking about, and you'll see exactly what the differences are between EXS 220 and EXS Pro.
So nice of you. Oh, you know what? I should have plugged it at the top of the show, and I didn't. Shame on me. Obviously, like we said, Jon is here with me today because Chris isn't, but this just happened to work out this way. Jon Claffey will also be on Chris McEwen's hit podcast, Golf Origin Stories, this week.
Yeah.
This week. By all accounts, it was a good time. So don't know when this should be out already. If you're watching this show, go check it out on all the platforms, and go to chrismcEwen.com to find it if I'm not giving you the right information here. But
yeah, we had a blast doing it, and a lot of good stuff in there. I was able to reminisce on how I got in the golf industry and all that good stuff. So it was fun.
I will say Jon's got some interesting stories and travels in his golf career. So I don't, as you all know, I don't listen to the Chris McEwen podcast for a variety of reasons. This will be the second episode I actually listen to.
Yeah, you're mentioned.
Oh, no. Maybe I won't listen to it then. Jon, as always, man, it was a pleasure having you today, and I look forward to catching up with you more soon and maybe getting out playing a little golf.
Appreciate it, Bill. Have a lot of fun.
We'll talk to you.